All right. How long did the transition from U.S. to Costa Rica take after you acquire resources to do so? Happy born day. Much love. Much love, Ben. The transition from the U.S. to Costa Rica took, I think I literally left. Okay, so it was 2 weeks of chakras wide open. In that 2 weeks, so let's give it another extra 2 weeks. So in that month, I had liquidated my entire previous life with pleasure, realizing exactly how much it was trapping me up. And I pinged the source because I was either going to Vietnam or I was going to Costa Rica. And I got the triple sign of it saying Costa Rica. It was a magazine, somebody that was coming in the house, and then something on TV, all at the same time. So goodbye, Vietnam. Plus, I was thinking Vietnam was a little far. It's like, but quiet as kept, I heard Vietnam is like, that's a spot. Like, the only thing you remember is just what happened in the war, and that's for a reason. And so that took the month. So I came in, and let's say I was in for 3 months, and I was getting a little cabin fever, though. I ain't gonna lie, like I had escaped to paradise, was clicking my heels, like, you jump in the air and just click the heels, right? George Jefferson walking through the Yellow Bridge and everything, right? And at a certain point, though, as I said, the phantom, which is like the eidolon, the false you, the ego that has been set up by the construct, the astral. Okay, look at this, right? So I was even peeping out this yesterday. So as we know it, all the occult systems are actually in the space right now. So when we look at just space overall and when you go to space, what you're called, you get the alignment of those who actually are, or what their affiliations are. So in the United States, in the Western country, we call the people that go to space astronauts. And the reason is because space for that cabal is the astral plane. And because of their awareness of frequencies, crystals, relics, these kind of things, they in many ways can control different parts of the dream world. In fact, all of the high levels of Rosicrucian knowledge takes place in the dream space and going through doors with different symbols on them, right? So at this stage, we've come to realize, okay, so let me slow down here. Let me slow it down. What was the question? Yeah, it's like, okay, what was the question? I have a tendency to do that, right? It's like, so the question was answered. It took me a month. And then after 3 months, I started feeling like it was like a weird itch. It was like you were addicted to something and you needed to have a shot of it. And that honestly, what it was is that, remember, I'm coming to a foreign country, so nobody speaks English. And I'm not necessarily trying to communicate with anybody either, right? Like, I'm just on the spiritual, like I just had something. I mean, I'm out in the jungle, like walking around the jungle. Like this is, where you're at, just grounding out. But as the 3rd month started rolling in, it was like it had a boomerang effect of just being so isolated and just changing the frequency so abruptly that it was enough to pull me back into the States for about a week. Because when I got there, it was so many signs that I had made a mistake. And the weird part was that I couldn't actually undo the mistake really easy, meaning that I couldn't actually get back to Costa Rica just as easy as I thought I was able to. And, that kind of introduced for me more of even like, it was a weird moment because it felt like that I had been tricked. And, that can happen sometimes when you're unsure. And that's why I said Stability means you just go, when you decide to do it, you keep going. It's like, no, we're going through this transformation. we're going to make it. This is going to happen. We're going to do this because there can be no doubt. You cannot waver because when you're waver, it'll exploit that. And that's got to what happened. I got exploited. And then once I got back, I was like, oh man, that was a really bad decision. Imagine where you were and all this. And then so I started trying to make my way back into the space over here and I couldn't. It wasn't aligning up. And then the weirdest thing happened. And I'll talk about it now. I got to get some water. Weirdest thing happened was I was in this dream, and I'll say the dream now because it's already over. But I was in this dream, and I was having the normal dream, and this lady walked into this dream. She was an older lady. She walked into my dream, and she froze the whole dream. It was the weirdest thing I've ever kind of seen. She froze the dream, and she said, today you're going to get a way to go back, and I'm telling you, don't come back here. Because the thing is, you're not understanding how this is set up. Like a lot of this is set up. And I was in Atlanta. And you know how in the dream you get transmitted like a whole data pack of what needs to be explained? And what it was explaining was about the ley line work that had been done by the Freemasons, that the building that they're doing is to tap and do different things with the ley lines and move energy around. And what this was doing then is it was tampering in certain ways with my dream world and my ability in that space. And I don't, okay, so this is one of the things that I want to make sure is very clear. It doesn't mean just because you're in the United States that your dreams are being manipulated. Your dreams can be manipulated anywhere if your mind can be manipulated. But because I was so sensitive, and this was made very clear, because also there's another time where, you know, I wasn't eating necessarily the best diet, but I had powers and abilities. But then there was times when I was having the best diet and everything, and I couldn't really even get a milliamp going off my fingers. So it's just, there's times and spaces for different things, and you got to understand what are the variables that are changing those times and changing those spaces. And so in this case, it was a somewhat of a warning that was saying, listen, this power that you have being in these fields specifically, it's probably not a good idea. Give me a quick second. Let me see. Did we lose power? Okay, no, we still got power. So it was like, yeah, I mean, you can't be in this space because it's like there's warlocks in that space and you're kind of diametrically opposed to where they're at right now. So unless you want to go battle. And, you know, because that was like the first idea that came to me is to start something that seems to have happening for thousands, if not millions of years, which is when some of us activate, we immediately go into like battle mode, like war mode. And we want to go at this thing and try to defeat this thing with anything that we know to be able to harm it. We even think of magic even and different stuff like that. And then we find a story that feels that we can identify with enough to give us a purpose and a reason. So it's almost like old noble samurai going in and trying to find his new cause and then going in at that cause with this, you know, indestructible consciousness in order to build oneself. And I've learned that actually is called the dragon mode. There's 3 modes, as I was mentioning yesterday: the beast mode, the dragon mode, and the false prophet mode. And in these secret societies now, when they bring on especially new initiates, those are the only degrees that they're advertising or auditioning for. And, you know, beast mode, you know, already are familiar with that. You're familiar with when, you know, someone even physically has the ability to take their mind, their body to another stage. Actually, you look at, you know, but I'm talking about in this beast mode, I'm talking about like Megadeth. You know, I'm talking about 3 Seconds to Mars. You know, you're beyond octaves of men. Like there are people who hit notes that are beyond octaves of our box from, you know, so it's like, you know, that there's a coupling, we'll call it that. There's a coupling that's happened there. And, you know, and this is what is embedded in these societies is real engineering and actually bolting on other entities and forms that themselves have been even manipulated and how would I put this? Meaning that it's not all what you would think is organic. You can have 20 of a specific kind of entity. And that's also why with the role of the beast, the dragon, the false prophet, and those roles being cast, there's many people who have taken on different roles. It's not like there's only one beast. Right. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, the dragon, you know, that dragon mentality in the sharpness and the cuteness, like a grand dragon in different traditions that actually still hold grand dragons and what you do to get to that level. You see what I mean? That's a role that's been casted in the Matrix. And, you know, obviously these are the days of the false prophet. Because at this point in time, one needs to sit back for a moment and really just gain bearing. That's why I was saying, like, we need to kind of take a moment and take a cold, hard look at ourselves. Here we are as like an infinite being, spending a lot of time trying to figure out what everything around us is doing beside ourselves. And I'm not saying that like to just kind of like egg everybody on. I be on myself like that. Like I be on myself. That's what my empowering ability is just to be able to go in on myself and just be like, really call bullshit, as they say. Just be like, look, just because 8 billion people are doing it doesn't mean you need to be doing it. And you need to extract you. Sometimes you can even see you in the matrix. You can see you and what you really are and what you want to be, and then what you are, which don't even be that. And it's almost like what they say, it's like a work in progress. So you're imagining what you want to be, but it's not even that you're imagining what you want to be. You're like imagining who you are, but you're not it somehow. And that's the gap that we're closing with this knowledge and this awareness.